It's very easy right now to look at the world and look at the shortcomings of religion. And if somebody is an anti theist, they are opposed to the belief in the existence of a god or gods. And one of the arguments that they will use is that look at the world around us. It's a dumpster fire. People are not nice to people. There's war, there's famine, there's disease, there's capitalism. People are really good at hurting people. And if there were a god or gods, then surely they would step in and make this not happen. That is in contrast to an atheist who simply believes they don't believe in a god or god, but gods or gods may exist, they just don't believe in them. Either way, I think it is so easy to look around the world right now, and this isn't just a Christianity problem. I think this can be found in many other religions and see how they have been used to manipulate, to gain power, to keep certain groups marginalized. And when you do that, it's very easy to say religion is broken. But I think we need to go beyond that. I think we need to go beyond just saying religion doesn't work for us, religion hurts people, and throw it all away. I think we need to examine why religion is broken. And I'm going to do that in this series of podcasts. And I'm going to start by talking about capitalism. You're listening to Feathermane Soul Wisdom, a podcast designed for people looking to live embodied lives and find their authentic selves. This show is hosted by Kit Kaelstow, body theologian and spiritual mentor. If you're looking to get in touch with your inner spirit, then this show is for you. Thanks for listening. And now, this week's show. The truth is, religion has been broken for a very long time. But I feel like where things really have gone awry is in the modern era, and that is with capitalism. So in the book, The Radical Reformation, the author talks about how one of the biggest changes that the Reformation made was moving from a religion that, yes, while it had its faults, and yes, it was being used to gain power and control and money, also had an aspect that was really connected with the common good and with helping people. And with believing that what Jesus taught in the Gospels, to feed the hungry, to heal the sick, to love your neighbor, that really meant that in order to follow that Christian mission, they needed to have a civic outreach. And one of the changes in Protestantism and the Reformation was the belief in predetermination. In other words, God had already decided whether you were going to go to heaven or not. And so because of this, there wasn't anything you could do on earth in your incarnation to change that decision. And of course, you have to know who's going to heaven. You have to know who's been blessed by God. And so those with the easier lives, those with privilege, those with money, those who have abundance, that's how you can tell that you've been predestined to go to heaven. And so that radical reformation really had a turn towards an individualism. And we see this here in America with our belief in rugged individualism and our belief that it's pretty much not a civic or a cultural or community care situation, but you're responsible for yourself, and that's all you can count on. That big change really drove a lot of transitions, and it really drove a lot of our contemporary Western thinking. Now, if we fast forward 150 years or so, more than that, what we end up with is basically a two-tiered system of Christianity. And I'll be honest, there, a lot of organized religion is broken, and this isn't just a Christian issue. But what happens is you have certain denominations that are still retaining that more civic mindedness. Catholic Charities comes to mind. And again, this isn't to dismiss the issues that are inherent, and this is why religion to a large extent is broken. But there are certain denominations that are known for more outreach, and then there are the denominations, and I'm thinking pretty much of modern evangelicalism, that is pretty much known for big, wealthy mega pastors, for people starting ministries, and for believing that they don't have to do any good other than speak the right words, and then that they are saved. And so this is why there's a big ex-evangelical movement, for example. So where does capitalism come into all of this? Well, capitalism plays into that individualism because from an academic sense, capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit. That's the dictionary definition there from the Oxford Dictionary. So if you have a political and economic system in which the country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit, that ethos is going to seep into religion. And we see this a lot with the megachurches, for example. There is a belief that if you're raising money for God and you're getting rich for God, then that is all you need to worry about. Not how do you use that money, where do you share that money, what do you do with that money, but basically, as long as you're doing it in God's name, it's okay. And so we have a system where there is a certain denomination of religion, and I should add that this denomination is very much a minority, but they're very loud, so they seem like a majority. But there is a denomination that pretty much has integrated itself into politics, into creating these mega churches that bring in millions of dollars of money. And it doesn't really go towards helping people. It goes towards enriching the minister. And so because of that, the capitalistic ethos really has imbued religion with a sense of brokenness. So why do I say that religion is broken? And why do I say that capitalism is one of the causes of that? So to me, religion is broken because most of the people who think about it, or who, if you mention religion to somebody, there's a vast majority of people out there who's going to look at that and think that there's something wrong with that. It's not for them. It doesn't work for them. And that's why I focus so much on spirituality, because I believe you can be genuinely spiritual without, without being religious. And that's why I think that it's important that we deconstruct our stories that we were told by religion, whether that's the religion of our upbringing or the Christian homogeny that we basically live in the U.S., where religion is influencing our policies and shapes our public discourse. So if you think about something and your first thought is, I don't know about that, then there's a good chance that that is broken. I am in the tech world, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of talk in the tech world about a term called enshittification. And that term basically means that the programs that we use, and I'm sure you can probably resonate with this with the social media that you use, or with, an email client, that these programs are basically getting worse and worse and worse. And that's due in large part to companies putting in features that nobody really needs or asks for. AI is a good example of that. I do a lot of work on websites, my own websites primarily. And it seems like every time I upgrade one of my plugins for my website, they're adding AI features. And I'm like, why? I don't want this. I don't need this. This is not good for the planet. This is not something I want to use. And that is enshittification. And so religion has undergone a form of enshittification, honestly, for centuries, where people have looked at it, and instead of focusing on how can this be a force for good, how can this be a force that helps people, they're instead focusing on how can I use this to accrue money and power, which is capitalism. And so I think that when we look at how religion in many ways has paralleled our society, the way that our culture has gone, the fact that we're in late stage capitalism. One of the research items I did for a paper this semester talked about late stage capitalism and what people look for in late stage capitalism. And while this paper was on Tantra and basically the Western version of Tantra or Neo Tantra compared to the foundations of Tantra, we can also see this in general Western religion, Christianity especially. And again, I don't want to exclude other religions because I feel like any religion could be used to harm. Any religion could be used to corrupt, to seek power. And what you would want to do is look at how those religions are broken so that way we can learn how to fix them and make them better for everybody. And this is basically done with your relationship with religion or with general spirituality. We can work on a systemic level if you are involved in a faith. For example, I am pagan polytheistic. And so some of the work that I want to do, a book that I'm working on, talks about how we can make paganism better for everybody. My thesis is on crafting a theory of disability liberation in paganism. So I feel as pagan clergy that I am qualified to speak to my religion, paganism. I can talk somewhat academically about Christianity. I was raised in Christianity. I've done a lot of work on, for example, disability liberation, gender liberation, sexual orientation liberation, queer liberation within Christianity. And I have great admiration for the people working in those areas, feminist theology. That's amazing work that can be done to make Christianity better for everybody. But for example, I do not have lived experience with Islam. I am academically familiar with the basics of Islam because of the classes I've had to take. Unfortunately, I have not been able to take as many classes on that particular faith as I would like to broaden my knowledge. In the same way, frankly, with the Jewish faith, and there are other faiths as well, although I've, probably taken more Buddhist and Sikh classes, Jainism classes than I have, for example, on the Jewish faith. And that just has to do with the way that some of my classes fell, as well as the instructors and what they're offering. And so because of that, I would not dare to speak to somebody who is Jewish and say, here's how you can make your religion better, because that's not my place. That's not my lived experience. And so, when I say religion is broken, what I'm talking about is generally in a more broad context, as well as what I see in terms of how any religion can be used for power, for money, for corruption, and why that isn't, why that takes us away from what Otto calls the numinous. it is very hard to feel connected to something larger than yourself when there is a belief that you are connected more to a person or a personality rather than a larger tenet of divinity. So if you have a very charismatic, and I'm not talking about, well, I am actually talking about charismatic religions, but if you have, for example, a megachurch pastor and you feel more connected to what this pastor is saying, regardless of whether it falls in line with what your faith is saying, that's broken. That's clearly not following the tenets of that religion. That is clearly using things for your own ends. And that's capitalism. That is following a person, a private person, rather than the tenets or the ideas of a larger belief system. So, what is my hope for this Religion is Broken series? This is a concept that I've been thinking about for a while. And it's really kind of come together this semester. I'm taking this religion and trauma class again because of where my college is located, because of the experience of my professor. The class has been primarily Christian focused, although they have looked at other religions, and we've looked at other issues more broadly. My graduate seminar was on pastoral counseling or spiritual counseling, and that's something I hope to do a podcast on here soon. So, but what this has really made me think is that religion, spirituality, being connected to something larger than yourself. And again, that being connected to something larger than yourself does not necessarily mean a god or a gods. The fact that I personally believe in gods doesn't mean that you have to, for example. And you can be connected to something outside of yourself when you're, sitting and relaxing with a favorite pet, for example. You and that pet are two beings connected to one another. And even though there may not be a conscious awareness of divinity, you may seem like a divine being to your dog, for example. And sometimes I think our cats may see us as divine beings. Other times our cats may not care. But there's this sense of companionship, of being connected to something outside yourself. That can be just as spiritual as a belief in gods or being connected to the gods. That can be just as spiritual as being connected, for example, to the vastness of space. And so we have this situation where religion comes out as spirituality, and religion should connect us with the numinous, with the spiritual, with the transcendent. And so religion should be a force for good. It really should create these positive, warm feelings. It really should create positive change in our society as we all work towards as they say, the better angels of our nature, to our best higher self. As we strive to attain this, religion really should be a force for good. And there are many ways in which it harms people, in which it hurts people. And that's where I've really been thinking about how religion hurts people and what my work can do to help you understand how you may have been hurt by religion and help you create a relationship, if you wish, with religion or with spirituality that actually gives you those feelings of numinous or those feelings of connection. So my Religion is Broken series is meant to not so much call out bad actors, although I certainly won't be shy in doing so, but also in looking at ways that we can recreate religion and recreate our relationship with religion so that it can actually do what it's meant to do. Now, again, that being said, if you are more genuinely spiritual, rather than religious, that's fine. And if you're just here as a curiosity and you're not sure what role religion or spirituality has in your life or your story, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I certainly don't want to be, I don't want to say pardon the pun because I'm not sure it's a pun, but I certainly don't want to be preaching anything. I believe that we are all sparks of the universe. We are all divine in our own right. And because of that, we have the autonomy and the agency to create our own relationship or choose to have a lack of relationship with spirituality. But I also believe that there are a great many people out there who were hurt by religion and who would like to find restoration around their relationship with it, even if they choose not to engage with it going forward. And I believe that this affects my communities, neurodivergent, queer, disabled, a lot more than other communities as well. So I think I'm going to leave it here for today. This is my first podcast back after a very long hiatus. Some of it was imposed by Mother Nature. It's been a wild month of weather here in the Ozarks. A couple of power outages. We lost water at one point. And some of it is just me thinking about this stuff and thinking about how I want to engage. And so I have an interview for you next week. I look forward to sharing that with you, and then we will return to this topic of religion is broken. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you're hearing my voice. And tune in next week because I have got an absolutely amazing interview for you. Thank you. You've been listening to the Feathermane Soul Wisdom Podcast, hosted by Kit Kilstow. Learn more about Feathermane Soul at feathermanesoul.com. Kit's passionate about embodied living and finding authentic joy by connecting with yourself and others. Kit loves working with neurodivergent, chronically ill, or disabled individuals, as well as anyone who wants to reclaim the stories and find new stories for them. Music is Running with the Horses by Purple Planet Music. This podcast is hosted on the Muse Charmer Media Network. Find out more by visiting the podcast website and following the links to Muse Charmer. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow the podcast at your favorite podcast listening or social media site. Thank you.